Welcome back to Every Other Carl. I'm Carl, and this floor bounces. It's not terrible, but it's too much bounce for me. So today, I'm gonna take the bounce out of this floor. This is the second floor in my two-family house. There's a long, nearly 20-foot span in this living room. This is the downstairs apartment in this two-family house. This house was built almost 100 years ago, and the beams they used to create the floor joists for that upstairs living room are not exactly adequate by today's standards. I cut this exploratory hole in the downstairs living room yesterday, and it gave me a good idea of what I'm dealing with here. We have 2x8 joists. On this kind of span, you should really have 2x12, maybe minimum 2x10. There's codes for this that they didn't follow back in the day. These joists were already sistered, so there's two of them here. Sistering means you take one joist and you run a second equal piece of wood the entire length of that joist. Today, I'm gonna be doing some more sistering, but I'm also gonna be adding in some plywood to sandwich those sistered joists and make it sort of an engineered beam. This is my first time doing this, so take anything I say with a grain of salt. I am just a DIYer on YouTube, but I hope you find this video interesting, maybe even learn something. I finished cutting out the drywall ceiling with my rotozip while my friend and handyman Jonathan showed up to help me with the project. So there's a couple ways to sister a floor joist. The first method is a full sister, where you add a new piece of lumber, the same size or dimensions as the original, for the entire span. The new joist bears the weight of the floor above it on the wall or foundation at both ends, meaning that joist has bearing at both ends. The second method is called scabbing, where you use a smaller piece of wood to reinforce just a damaged or sagging section. Often this can be done with just plywood. What we're doing today is a bit of a hybrid. We're running our new joist nearly the full length, though we couldn't get all the way to the end in some spots. The general rule is make your new sister joist as long as you possibly can. For this first beam, we beefed up our new 2x8 by gluing some 3/4 inch plywood strips with Titebond level 3. By the way, I'll add links to any product that I'm using in the video down in the description section if you want to check them out. The plywood adds serious rigidity and resistance to deflection. We used screws to secure the plywood to the 2x8, making it easier to lift into place so that the plywood didn't just slide off that new joist. Then we glued the whole new beam to the old one, and we put it in place with screws and nails. We're using framing nails and number 10 GRK construction screws. Again, I'll leave links to these in the description. With the new joist in place, I used a bottle jack to lift the original joist up about an inch or an inch and a half. This takes the sag out of the floor before you screw and nail everything into place. Luckily for us, this first joist was easy to access. In some cases, fitting a new joist can be a real struggle, especially if you have a sensitive floor above it, like tile. If you have a tile floor, hammering this new joist into place can cause that floor to crack. In that situation, it's worth cutting your new joist just a bit shorter, like a 2x7.5 instead of a full 2x8, so it can be maneuvered into position more easily. With that one done, we moved on to the next joist, where we did things a little bit differently. We decided to go with through bolting the entire sister. We originally planned to just temporarily install it, drill the holes, take it down, and add the glue and plywood, but we got so into the process that we just kind of forgot the whole plywood and glue. We decided it was still plenty strong and moved on with a note to remember for the next one. We put the next one in using the jack again, and then moved on to the fourth and final joist. Jacked it up into place, added plywood and glue, and drove everything home with the screws and nails. Once both of those final sister joists were in place, we moved on to another important improvement to the rigidity of this floor: blocking. Blocking can be done in different ways as well. The method I chose was adding full blocks between each of the joists right down the center of the ceiling, and toenailing each block into place. This, combined with the new joists, goes a long way in keeping the floor from bowing in the middle. With the blocks in, I added some Romex cable for new ceiling lights. All right, let me show you what we've done so far. Remember, this is my first time doing it. Here's the first beam we put in. It's got a new 2x8 with plywood sandwiched between that new one and the old 2x8, which was already sistered to the original beam. That we nailed and screwed into the old beam. Over here, We through bolted the new 2x8 all the way through the old ones. Those bolts come out the other side and they are tightened down. That's the preferred method, actually. So I bought a whole bunch more bolts. We're gonna through bolt the old ones and all the way down here as well. So we did those 2 beams, we did this one and this one. So 4 total. Then we added blocking down the middle of the floor. Now I'm just finishing up electrical because I'm adding new lights to this ceiling. And once that's in, we could put insulation in. We have Rockwool to dampen the sound travel between these floors. And then we'll put the drywall back up. Taking down this ceiling was a big decision and a big expense. I didn't want to have to do it again. So I took the opportunity to make several more improvements beyond just improving the rigidity of the floor itself. Like I said, I added new recessed lights as well as improved insulation. This is a 2-family house, so improving the sound insulation between floors is always a good idea. There was already a thermal insulation, the pink and yellow fiberglass, but we added in these semi-rigid Rockwool comfort board panels. Rockwool is super dense, so it is an effective sound insulator. Again, I'll leave a link to these products in the description. With all that in, we could install our new 1/2-inch drywall. Side note, having 3 people is such a help when installing a drywall ceiling, so big thanks to my brother-in-law for coming over to help me and Jonathan. I also tried out a new tool I've been wanting to use for a while. It's called the Dimpler, and it turns your regular drill or driver into a drywall gun by sinking a drywall screw to the perfect depth before letting it go. Using this tool, I didn't have a single screw blow through the drywall. I was very impressed. They didn't sponsor me or anything, I just bought the Dimpler, and I would highly recommend it. Check the description for a link. All right, it's evening of day 2. We have all the drywall up. We have everything taped and first layer of joint compound on. Now I'm gonna do a thicker layer of mud just to smooth everything out and maybe cut the last couple holes for our recessed lights. All right, it's the final day. Day 4, morning here, and it is time for the absolute worst part of any drywall job, sanding. So, gonna sand it up, install these final lights, paint it, and then we're done. You might have noticed that I skipped over day 3. That's because day 3 was basically just a day to let all the joint compound dry. So here, on day 4, I did a final skim coat of joint compound, installed all the electrical for my recessed lights. By the way, I'm using commercial electric LED lights. These are my favorite to work with. Super low profile both above and below the drywall. Then I got to sanding the drywall, the part of the job that I hate the most. So we'll just fast forward through this really fast to make it look like it wasn't as hard as it was, and then we can get to painting. I used a ceiling paint from Glidden that goes on pink and then dries white. This makes your life a lot easier by making it obvious what you've already painted and what you haven't. Something that can be hard to determine when you're painting flat white on a ceiling. Completely unrelated to the ceiling, but one final touch was that I wanted to update the covers on the baseboard heaters in this living room. My parents actually live here, and making their heaters look better had been on my to-do list for a long time. I'm very happy with how they turned out. All right, everything is back together. Ceiling is painted, lights are in. Got these on a dimmer switch. But the main concern was, will the floor bounce? Let's check it out. So yes, it does still shake a little bit. It does still deflect a little bit, but I'd say we're about 60-75% better than it was before. I mean, obviously, if I had been able to go 16 inches on center with all new joists, that would have been amazing. If those joists could have been 2x12s instead of 2x8s, that would have been optimal. But that really wasn't possible in my situation. In any case, I am very happy with the improvement that I've seen in this floor. It gives me a lot of peace of mind, and I was able to get all those other projects done, like sound insulation, new lights, and a nice looking ceiling. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave it in the comment section below. If you're a professional and you do this kind of thing for a living, please leave that in the comment section below because it'll help the next person out. I am just a DIYer, as I said in the beginning, but I'm pretty proud of this job and I am happy with the results. Please subscribe to my channel. Please like the video if you like the video. And until next time, I'm Every Other Carl, and I'll see ya.